Hi, listener. Welcome to the More Than Me podcast with your host, Becky Harrington, sharing stories of women who decided to move outside of themselves and claim a higher purpose, because together we are more. In each episode, we'll dig deep into stories of women who shed their fear and shame so that they could claim their higher purpose. Each week, you'll leave inspired, free from the shoulds that have been bringing you down, and prepared to walk ahead towards your bright purpose. Experience a community that has forged a path before you and discover that you're not alone. Hi, listeners. Welcome to the More Than Me podcast. I'm your host, Becky Harrington, and I want you to join me each week as we discover the triumphant stories of women who decided to have more for their lives and accept their purpose. This is a podcast for women who have a deep longing in their hearts, crave community, and are ready to step out in faith. Welcome, and today you're joining me with More Than Me Collective member, Nichole Mischke. Today we're going to talk about shame, and shame is such an important discussion, especially for women. Brené Brown really brought it out in the last 10 years that we have to talk about shame. And shame is usually paired with secrets that we're keeping locked deep and far away. And Nichole has a beautiful story to tell about that. But before we get into it, I just want to introduce you to our guest, Nichole. Say hello.
Thank you, Becky. Yes, my name is Nichole Mischke, and I'm excited to be sharing this story with you all. Coming from a place of shame where I lived in darkness for almost 10 years. It literally sometimes feels like I still have to pinch myself to be where I am today, because I never expected that by telling the world the one thing I never wanted them to know about me, I never expected that that would lead to the most abundant, full life, and that I would be healed as I'm sitting here today. So it's amazing to be here and to be sharing this with you, because ultimately what I want people to know is that you are not alone, no matter how dark or shameful whatever it is that you're going through, no matter what you've experienced. Shame wants to make you think you're alone, but that is the lie of shame. And the truth is, you're probably surrounded by people who are going through the exact same thing. They just need someone brave enough to be the first one to say, hey, I'm experiencing this. And then that'll open up the floodgates and the doors and the permission for everyone else to talk about their shame as well.
So, Nichole, you have been actually walking in life with Tiffany Smiley for a long time. And so you've actually probably been a part of the More Than Me movement before it was even an idea or an inception. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about your friendship with Tiffany and how you came to be a part of More Than Me?
Yes. So Tiffany Smiley is a woman who stopped me in my tracks when I first met her. And I was working in news. I had gone to school for broadcast journalism. It was a dream job at the time for me. And I was working at our local NBC news station here in Spokane, Washington. And I had interviewed her husband, Scotty, which for those of you who don't know, Scotty was blinded by a suicide car bomb while serving in Iraq shortly after they were first married. And Tiffany had to drop everything in her life to breathe him back to life, basically, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And in the process, 10 years later down the road, they had 3 kids. And what people don't realize, they often, everyone talks about the story of the veteran who was injured, but oftentimes the family gets neglected. And this is a story that's true for many caretakers of veterans. And it's the problem Tiffany found herself in, is after pouring all of herself and her purpose into her husband, and then he finally got better, she kind of stepped back one day and didn't know who she was anymore. So she fell into a darkness. And I met her, I didn't know it at the time, but in the midst of that darkness. And she had isolated herself. She didn't really talk to anybody. She didn't have a lot of friends. And we happened to go to Muffins with Mom together, Muffins with Mom, because our kids were in the same preschool class. And I just happened to sit next to her, and it was amazing. I think God puts us in certain situations for certain reasons. And had I not interviewed her husband before, I don't think Tiffany and I would have made the connection we did. Because as I was sitting there talking with her, and I was like, hey, how long have you lived here in Spokane? And it was just very short little answers. Like, she did not want to talk. But slowly I kept asking questions, and I pulled out that her husband had been blinded in Iraq. And I said, wait a second, I think I've met your husband. He's amazing. You're his wife. Like, you're amazing. And knowing then that I understood her pain, she was able to open up a little bit more. And then we stayed connected ever since then. And here we are now. And she's totally jumped out of that isolation. And knowing that she was able to pull herself out of something so isolating and so depressing, that's what's giving her this desire to go across to women of the country and say, come on, let's find your purpose. Let's not live in shame. Let's not live in fear. Let's live for more. And together we can be so much more than we can be on our own. So.
And the reason why this little story here is so powerful, and you can feel it in the conversation, is that community is like a miracle, right? It's a miracle. It gives life all around you, and we need it every single day. And that is part of the reason why we created this whole organization, is surrounded about this idea that community heals other people's lives. And Nichole and I didn't even know each other. I did not know her. The first time I saw Nichole was on Instagram. You had posted your video for More Than Me with your story, and you did a takeover. And that is all I knew about Nichole. All I knew is that I was going to show up in Boise, and I was just expectant to see what would happen. And then her and I sat down next to each other at the after party afterwards. She sat down next to me on the couch. We were all kind of crowded in on this couch in this room, all these women trying to fit in there. And we just talked for the first time face to face. And it's amazing how quickly you can go from a perfect stranger that you're watching on Instagram to somebody that you're opening up with and sharing your life, how fast that can actually happen.
Yeah. And I think that happens when we just start being real with ourselves, with what we've been through, because, you have an amazing story and a story of hurt and pain. And you're willing to share that with someone that is real also.
Yeah.
Like someone else who knows that life isn't perfect, and it's not about looking insta good or insta worthy, right? It's about the realness of life, because the one thing that is certain for all of us is that life will be painful.
Yep.
And if we're not willing to be open about our pain, when we experience it, we're probably not going to have anyone we feel like we can have community with and go through that together. So.
Well, we're about to have a really great conversation about what it looks like to walk through the most painful part of your life, and to walk out of it too. We're going to talk about what it looks like to be in the cage, and we're going to talk about what it looks like to leave the cage. But before we do that, I got to talk to you about what we have going on with More Than Me. So if you're listening to this and it's February, and so you've started with us right along February 2019, we want you to join us in Dallas in March. There's going to be more events that are always happening on morethanme.com. So if you already missed the Dallas event and you're coming in later to the podcast, go to morethanme.com. You can click on the upcoming events tab, and you can learn about all the events that are coming down the pipeline. If we don't have any scheduled right now, sign up for our newsletter and you'll be notified when new events happen. But we want to see you in person. That is really key. We're going to talk about that a lot. The next thing is, if you are just anxious to get started with us now, we have an opportunity called our member program. And this is for other audacious women who want to band together with us and live out their purposes. You're going to get to interact with this community of women every month and hear from expert coaches, marketeers. They're going to send you a bunch of stuff in the mail that's beautiful. But what you're really going to get out of this is your participation in it. This is a give and get community where we embrace and help each other. We collaborate, support, and promote out of the abundance in our lives. So this is a skin in the game group of women, and we want you to join us. And if, depending on when you're listening, we have a Zoom call where you can get face-to-face, just like Nichole and I are right now, on a Zoom call with all of the other members, the last Thursday of the month. So before you know it, you can be in community and you can